What can a great conductor teach you about becoming a better leader? Well, stick around because that is exactly what you're going to figure out today. Hey! So, my name is Richard Mulholland. I'm the founder and chief evangelist of Presentation Powerhouse Missing Link, and I am very excited to welcome you to our new series on the world's most underrated TED Talks. Every 2 weeks, we share an underrated talk with you that I feel that you absolutely should watch, and then we're going to try to break it down a little bit. Why did it work? What was so great about the presenter? We're going to watch it together, but I also want you to watch the whole thing. Before you do, though, definitely go and check out the link that is in the comments down below to our How to Watch a TED Talk video. This is critical because there are 5 key burning questions that I need you to answer in every TED Talk you watch in order to get the most out of it. And so if you haven't yet, definitely check that out, or at the very least, take a screenshot of these questions and we can start from there. Right. So where do we start? Well, we're starting with one of my favorite talks of all time. The gentleman's name is Itay Talgam, and his talk is called Lead Like the Great Conductors. Oh, it is amazing. Well, I've seen Itay speak twice. This was the second time I'd seen him. Weirdly, this is one of the greatest talks on business and management that I have ever watched. And yet he doesn't really talk about business and management. You just get where he's going. It is an absolute masterclass. So what I want you to do, stick with me for a little bit while I take you through some of what I loved about it, and then you can go watch it and see if we agree. I'd love to see that in the comments down below. What did you like? What did he win you over with? What did you want to steal from it? What actions you're going to take? Put that down below. And definitely, if you had value out of this, please feel free to share it. Definitely feel free to hit like for me. That would be fantastic. So where do we start? Well, we start with where did he win me over? For me, Itay won me over within the first 30 seconds of this talk. There was a little moment where he did this small little bit of self-depreciating humor. And without a doubt, it was his nature and his general authenticity and humor that won us over. It was very natural humor. It wasn't jokes. You know, people often say to me, should I be funny in a presentation? Well, are you regularly funny? You know, are you generally seen as a funny person? If the answer to that question is no, usually this isn't the first place to try and figure that out. However, you can see that Itay has a very good nature around him and wants to bring in a little bit of humor. And that slightly self-depreciating humor was just remarkable. That little line he said, and we'll run it for you now, where he said, I'd like to think it's all about me. Just check this out.
And suddenly, out of the chaos, order. Noise becomes music. And this is fantastic, and it's so tempting to think that it's all about me.
See what I mean? He wins you over that little smile, that little bit of self-depreciating humor. It's not about me. But then you're also curious, what is it about? And that's where he gets into the story next. So what would I steal? There's so much to love about this talk, and there's so many things that I want to steal from it. Now, I tend to be a presenter that likes to use visuals when I present. Now, you'll notice that Itay did use visuals, but the visuals he used were video clips that he would introduce. So he would introduce a video clip, set the scene with it, and then he would talk a little bit about that afterwards. Check this out as an example.
This is the true experience of a live concert. That's a reason to go out of home. Yeah? And not all conductors do just that. Let's see somebody else, a great conductor. Riccardo Muti, please. Yeah, that was very short, but you could see it's a completely different figure, right? He's awesome. He's so commanding. Yeah? So clear.
Now, what's incredible is that he uses these videos, but something else is really, really incredible, and something that I think we can all steal, is a lot of us think that our authority is derived from talking about ourselves. Now, Itay Talgam is the conductor, the Tel Aviv Philharmonic. He is in the Olympic level of conductors, and yet this presentation was not him as a case study. He didn't share his experience as a case study. He rather chose to share other people's stories. When we work with professional speakers in our Story to Stage program, one of the things that a lot of them come up with is imposter syndrome. I don't know if I have all the authority to speak. There are 2 categories of presenters. There is Olympians and there is journalists. Olympians talk about their experience in winning the Olympics, and journalists talk about their research. Now, here's the funny thing. Itay was absolutely an Olympian, and yet he spoke like a journalist. His study of these other great Olympians, and it was so charming and so brilliant, and yet you knew his authority was there as well. Absolutely magnificent. Another thing that I loved, that I thought was just magnificent, the way he did it, was the way the one time he did use himself as a presenter was when he conducted the audience. Check this out.
Can you sing, please, the first note of Don Giovanni? You have to sing, oh, and I'll stop you. Okay? Ready? Well, come on, with me. If you do it without me, I feel even more redundant than I already feel. So, please, wait for the conductor. Now, look at me, and I stop you. Let's go. Ah. So we'll have a little chat later.
So you see what he did there? He drew his audience in. He made them interactive. He put himself in a position of authority, but he also used that humor, and the audience loved him by this stage. They would do anything for him. I was in that room. Honestly, he could have asked us to do anything, to leave our comfort zone, and we would have. Now, what's important is he didn't do that straight out the gates. He won us over already, and then only did he do that. A big mistake a lot of public speakers make is they ask too much from the audience before they have won them over. And that's why that's the first question we ask you. What did they win you over with? Because if they haven't won you over, you miss some of the other things. Right? So it could have been they won me over with curiosity, if that was the type of speaker. But they have to have won you over. You have to be like, okay, before you do anything. And especially before you do a big ask like this. I thought this was an absolute masterstroke. So what advice would I share with Itay? Well, here's a tricky one. I remember years ago, I read the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, and, he tells a whole story like I was a military guy, and I was, we did this thing and we bombed this building and this happened. It was all amazing. And then he said, now in your boardrooms, how you can apply that is by doing A, B, C, D, and E. And he made it so that he would write one chapter and then he would write a whole other chapter where he joined the dots for you. I always find that very condescending. Like, you're the military guy, I can figure out what you mean. However, what he did is he still gave you great little terms, little nuggets, like extreme ownership. And one of the things that I felt Itay did well is that he wasn't condescending in trying to join the dots to a business sense. But one of the things that I think he did badly is he didn't give us anything. He didn't give us a legacy list to take home. So we always talk about in a presentation, what is your legacy list? What are the points you want to take away? So for example, the questions I gave you earlier, these questions, by giving you these as a list, this is something that you can hang your hat on. It's something tangible you can take away. Now, as a speaker, you don't have to join all the dots for people. But if he had just turned each one of those videos into one single leadership principle, just an idea, lead with such and such, do this, that, the next thing, those would have been principles that you would have remembered. Right now, you remember the talk, you do the talk, you watch the talk, but it's quite hard to take it away, internalize it, and know what to do next with it. And if I could have shared anything with him, I would have said to him, name your principles. Look at the video, describe what you're doing, and say, I'd like to call this method the such and such. And by giving somebody a name for that, then that's something you could have taken away. The other thing that I'd like to say, and this is less a bit of advice that I would give to Itay, but just an observation from that, is that the first time I saw him speak was at Picnic in 2008, along with our managing director, Samantha Leoncelis. And he was so amazing. Both talks, immediate standing ovation. And he was so amazing that she actually ran up to the stage and gave him a hug when he was climbing down. 100% true story. And he was invited back again the next year. But he was so incredible, and it was a 45-minute talk. And I remember when I watched the 18-minute TED version thinking, this wasn't as good. It was still great, but it wasn't as good. And my lesson from that is not everything has to be distilled all the way down. We've been trained to think that 18 minutes is the perfect length for a TED Talk. And I don't think that is always the case. I think there is sometimes where you want to make sure your messages have time to breathe. And if I was giving a bit of advice to Itay, it would be the longer one is a little bit better. Go with the longer version. That is really, really going to get those messages across. Of course, understanding the constraints that an organization like TED would give. I'd be very, very curious to hear down below, what would you share with Itay? What tips would you give him? This is the most important lesson you can get by figuring out what those tips are. But there's one other little bonus, one other little thing that I'd like to steal from Itay. Because if there's one thing that every single speaker in the world loves, it's getting a standing ovation. I can tell you, I've been a speaker for 18 years. The novelty does not wear off. Now, Itay, in both talks I watched him, engineered his ovation perfectly. How did he do it? Well, what he did was he built up his ending using music. He built Listen to this crescendo that he got, the clip he was playing directly before the end, and watch what happens. How could you not want to cheer after that? He built you all the way up, all the way to that point with that the biggest piece of music at the biggest crescendo. He brought that in right at the end of the talk. And then when the conductor finished like this, he ended and he bowed. No thank you, no anything. The audience had been raised by the music. And then he bowed and ended. That was just a wonderful ending, and the utilization of music in your presentation for your peroration. But for most of you, it's just the idea of a peroration itself. Knowing that you're trying to get the emotional altitude of your presentation higher near the end, and how can you engineer that audience emotional response, build up their pathos, that last little bit of the presentation, so that you can end on an absolute high, which I've probably already taken from in this one. So I'm going to cut this out right now, ladies and gentlemen, at the high point of this video, so you can go about your business and do what you need to do and go out there and lead loud. Wait. If there are any underrated talks that you have seen that you think we should break down and go through together, then definitely leave those in the comments, because I would love to find some of those gems that you've discovered that the world hasn't found. So please submit those. We'll definitely mention who submits those to us. I can't wait to share it with you. As you were, go watch the talk. Lead loud.